Welcome to UK Thrashers Guide 2. This is our opportunity to chat to those people that we wouldn't usually get a chance to on our weekly podcast. These are going to be people like management, authors, producers, event promoters and festival organisers. This is our opportunity to delve behind the scenes to find out what's going on in the world of UK underground metal. Each episode, John, I, or even sometimes both of us will be exploring a new topic that we think you might like. So strap in, hold on tight and enjoy the ride. It's time for UK Thrashers Guide 2. Okay, welcome to the brand new UK Thrashers Guide 2. This week we are joined in the studio by the two mics from Tanking. Welcome to the show, guys.
Good evening, how are you?
We're very good. Thanks for joining us. First of all, do you kind of want to introduce yourselves? Because I know one mic's not always a mic, he's sometimes a pup. So do you want to do some introductions and then kind of explain a bit about the Tanking, where the name came from and what you guys do?
So I'll take, seeing as you've already called me out, I'll go first. I'm Mike Tate, but I think a lot of people know me by my nickname Pup. Yeah. It's not exactly the most heavy metal of names of all time, but it's stuck with me since I was a kid. Yeah. I've grown up with it, so people tend to know me that. And it also just means when people are shouting Mike, they're usually shouting at the other Mike rather than shouting at me. I'm originally from Edinburgh. I'm knocking on a bit, so I've been gigging for over about 35 years. And I'm sort of dabbling behind the scenes on some of the festivals as well.
Yeah. For myself, obviously, I'm the other Mike, or t'other Mike, as I think I'm referred to most of the time. And yeah, most people, when they're shouting Mike, are yelling at me to do something. As I tend to be the lazy one of the group, because I'll let Pop do all the work and I'll take all the credit, really. That's the synergy. That's how it works.
Seems a fair deal.
It's a fair deal. It's a fair deal. I like it.
So do you want to explain kind of, I said that, where the name The Tanking came from and what it is you guys do?
Right. Well, I'll let Pop run this one, but yeah, go for it.
I mean, the name, it came from two sides, actually. We're up in North Yorkshire and we're quite close to Catterick, so there's a big military presence around us. So whereas we didn't necessarily want a military theme, but because my name is Tate and Mike is Hankins, it was either going to be hate or it was going to be tanking. And so we thought probably hate's probably been done, so we'll go for tanking.
The hate festival's got a very different connotation, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, exactly. We could have been all kinds of people turning up for that one.
Yeah. We've gone for the lighter effect on this one, for everything apart from the music. Yeah.
And what was funny is I'm going to call out Ian on this one. He knows who he is, because it wasn't until the end of the first event that he turned around to me and he said, "Why is it called The Tanking?" And I said to him, "Oh, it's Tate and Tankings." And he went, "Oh my God!" He didn't put it together.
Just eventually.
So Ian, if you're watching this one, shamed in public.
Yeah, shamed in public. I mean, I know we ran the first one, and this one always triggers a little memory with me. We had a particular band on, the Hot Rockets, and they'd been told early days, you've got to thank the two mics. You've got to thank the two mics. They've put this on out of nowhere. It's brilliant. And was it the drummer or the bassist? I can't remember. He came straight out on stage and he went, "I want to thank the Tanking, and I want to say thank you to the two Daves." And it was like a whole chorus of people just went, "Who the fuck is Dave?" It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So we answered to anything.
So is that stuck now? Is that the alternative alter ego superhero names?
It's if someone's shouting it, if we don't answer to Mike, someone will shout Dave and one of us will come running. Yeah.
So I think when we do the sequel, it's got to be like T2, the Judgment Daves.
Oh, I like it. That's going on the T-shirt, by the way. You're already in marketing. You can tell Mike is sales and marketing. He's got front of house. I do behind the house.
Strap lines all over the place, isn't it? Just throwing in those strap lines at any available
opportunity. Yeah, love it. Yeah.
So, kind of talked about. You mentioned kind of the first event there.
Yeah,
you kind of want to give us a little. So you've done one event so far because of COVID and everything else, and do you want to give us kind of a bit of an overview of how the first one You know, in the jaws of defeat, you managed to snatch a little bit of success.
Well, yeah, I mean, gladly. Let's be honest. The world got cancelled. Everything got shut down, killed around us. Nothing was happening. And for many people, you know, like Mike and myself, gigs and music is such a massive part of life that we've got all these gigs lined up and they all just dominoed. They all went in a heartbeat. So on the back end of quite a heavy session for both of us from a distance, obviously, as you had to, you know, keep the meters apart and everything, we got talking about, could we, in essence, get a venue that involved camping, and could we then get everyone together? And it'd be lovely if we could put some bands on, but if we couldn't put bands on, could we just play music? We could all come together as a good bunch and have a few tinnies and a bit of a giggle and everything like that. And that drunken conversation late one night turned into the Tanking, where it then became the festival that's not a festival for whatever reason. And it grew arms and legs. And that's where it came from, as far as I can remember. And it is a hazy memory, if I'm being honest, as well.
It certainly was that spark of an idea over a beer, which is all the good ideas happen that way anyway. But
yeah, no good story starts with salad.
As Mike says, we had to speak to the council, we had to speak to the police and say, look, what are we allowed to do?
Yeah.
And the police were saying things like, well, we're not enforcing this, we're giving you a recommendation and a guideline. Right. It was actually the local safety action group and the councils who were saying things like, well, this is what you can do, this is what you can't, this is how big's the venue, how big's social distancing, and everybody was finding their way. But what we both agreed was, where things were getting cancelled, nobody was doing anything, everybody had uncertainty.
Yeah.
And we knew a venue, we knew we were in a safe environment, we knew we could probably take 50 people, spread out, doing the temperature checks. We did all the track and trace. Emma and Jane, who are the two people who are not on the call, who are part of the team, they do all the grafting just to make it legal, compliant, for what essentially was just going to be a night of dance and music. And then we started to pull in a few favors from some friends and bands we know and things like this and said, look, do you fancy a gig?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it became a thing, and then was like, oh, we better get a PA. We better get lighting. We better get things.
Yeah.
And it very, very quickly became it became interesting in a hurry. But I think the tipping point, rather than just being a one-off, is bands like Godthrim, who are established bands who are on the circuit, they were saying to us, they said, look, you've got something special here. You've got a unique venue. You'll find that bands will want to play it because it's big enough, but it's not overpowering, and you still have that degree of intimacy. You should do this again. So then we were stupid enough and said, right, let's do it again.
So
when was the first one? When was that? Last
August 20.
August 20, yeah.
So you were we were good kind of 3 or 4 months into lockdown 1.0 when you were doing most of the organising. I kind of guess August we lifted. I'm trying to remember my timeline now because it's all the last year's kind of blurred into one.
We lost all the summer. All the summer festivals went.
Yeah, everything's on. It was kind of as we were coming out of. You know, people sort of thought we were going to get a bit. That was going to be the end of it, didn't we? And so you managed to kind of get that sweet spot before everything went back to shit again.
Sorry, mate. But
I was just going to say, I think because everybody was uncertain, all the promoters that I know were just not booking. They were just, everybody was just waiting on the glide path, waiting to see who would do what and what you couldn't do. And there was heavy fines. So if you were having a house party, you're seeing on the news that we're getting fined 5,000, 10,000.
Yeah, all these illegal raves and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So we just held our hands up. We went straight to the local police. We went straight to the local councils and said, look, this is what we want to do.
There's 5,000 moshers coming from all over the country.
Yeah, kind of.
But all joking aside, that was the interesting thing, because they said, right, you're capped at 50 guests. That's the most you can do is 50 guests. And then we were in the unusual position to say, how are we going to get 50? Not so much because we don't know 50, we know 500.
Yeah.
How are we going to just get 50 people?
Who's not coming to the wedding? Yeah.
Yeah, and this was that weird bit as well, because the first time round on our T-shirts and things, we had festival / not a festival, and I think this was the health and safety and the bizarreness of what was going on. You know, if we called it a festival, we couldn't actually hold the event for one person, let alone 50, 500. But if we said it wasn't a festival, then you're allowed to bring up to what was it, 500, 200, whatever it was. But it gave you that momentum to hold larger events, which was just bizarre, really, wasn't it?
Just to expand on that, because we're now past that stage. What you could because I had a few people who were asking me, how are you doing this legally? And what we found out was you could be a campsite, and you could be a club visiting and using a campsite facility, and then you could play outdoor music as part of your club, but you couldn't have a festival.
No.
So then we
can have all the constituent parts, but the moment you join them together and call it a festival, it's like the blue lights start flashing and you're going to court. Yeah,
it's like that silly sort of thing. I mean, I'm a Bury lad, and we're coming up to Easter now, so this one kind of fits in. We used to drink heavily on a Good Friday, and we drink this thing called diesel, which was cider, lager, and blackcurrant.
Yep.
Legal in all the pubs, perfectly fine. Some reason, laws changed. Now you can't order that in a pub, so you have to order a lager, a cider, and a blackcurrant in 3 parts.
And a pint glass, please.
In a pint glass. So you order it as house and put it together. It just is such a bizarre situation to be in, but that's kind of where we're at, and it's kicking along quite nicely. So thank you very much.
So although you say you called it a club for that reason, there was for a little bit at least it did become kind of a proper club, and you did membership fees, and for at least going into what was going to be tanking 2, I guess, the
T2
T2 from what we were meant to have, which is now in 2022. So kind of what happened with that? Is the club still the kind of the nucleus? Is there still a core family that's going to be the club, and then they get early doors rates and all that sort of stuff? Is that how it kind of works? Yeah,
we pretty much said, look, there's a lot of administration that we need to get through because we want to go to the next level. I mean, Mike knows contacts agents, I know contacts agents, and we knew we could springboard. So for 2021, which should have been next month, April, Mike pulled a few strings, I pulled a few strings, we got talking. But our core people who came to the first event, we wanted to look after them because they kind of really got what we were trying to do. Most of them were friends anyway, and it was just a really good vibe. So we wanted that nucleus. We didn't want to go as extreme as something like Dark Circle for Hard Rock Hell. We didn't want to do that, but we wanted to just give someone fast track to tickets, offers for special events that we would have access to, special merch, those little personal touches, fast track at the bar if that's what you need, and even stupid things which went a long way, Mike. Like you can order all of your weekend food in advance, and it will be delivered to site for you. So you're getting Deliveroo kind of services coming to the event, and you're getting hot food every single day delivered to you. But it was all little personal touches like that. We were taking care of it all.
Yeah, I mean, we never wanted to call it like VIP or anything like that because the terms that have been kind of done to death. Yeah. But we wanted to make it exclusive. We wanted to make it, an almost jealous thing that, you could tell your mate, well, I've got this ticket and they're doing this, and this, and this, and this for me. And like Pop said earlier, when the Godthram lads were there, they really were like, this is unique to any festival that you have that one-to-one almost mentality of, and it was there, that hospitality part of it, without calling it hospitality and everything. And, we threw it along with the little bits that, you get a beanie or you get a fast track, but we wanted to make it so it was something that sticks with you forever. That real connection sort of part of it, really. That's where we came from anyway.
Yeah. And what kind of fell out of that was the bands wanted to watch bands. So then all of a sudden the band members were in the crowd
Yeah.
And then the crowd were really buzzing off the fact that you had this intimate setting where you actually had full accessibility to your heroes and the people that you admired, rather than having to go into a signing tent or buy a golden ticket or any of that nonsense.
Or loiter around the bus like a pervert.
There's been a few times where I've been hanging around the tour buses. That happens. Yeah. So we just said, look, within reason, if the bands want to come out and play, you can interact with the band, and we've kept that same vibe.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of it as well, you didn't have to sell a kidney to buy a ticket like you do for some of those bits that Pop's on about there.
Inner circle stuff and all that wonderful stuff.
Gold circle and stuff. I mean, there was a moment I remember very clearly from T1, which was the Darkness Divine people. And, just to give you an idea of how this, was run on the first one, I was actually working the bar for the artists upstairs. So I'm doing drinks, I'm doing shots and everything. And we had this brilliant sort of part of time where people were coming and talking to him. And every time somebody came up to speak to him, it was like, okay, free shots and things. The poor lady, who's the lead singer of the band, had to have a little bit of a lie down mid-set on the main stage.
Brilliant.
Fucking amazing.
She'll kill you for that, man.
I know.
Right,
I love stuff like that, though. That's what it's about.
Before we go off down the kind of the circle and the stories about kind of what's to come down the line, do you want to give a little bit about kind of your background? How did you get into this game in the first place? How did you end up, being able to pull these strings and grab hold of all these people, and also kind of a check to the better half of the organisation? You better kind of give the girls a shout while you're discussing it.
The two Dorises, the two Daves,
Dave and Doris, you're going to get shot, mate.
Yeah, I fucking am.
You're brave for a school night. Yeah.
Well,
on you go, Mike.
Right. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I don't have a background in putting gigs and things together. I come from an electrical engineering background, really. And through my years, I've worked for Ministry of Defence, I've worked for Railway, I've worked for Aerospace, I've worked for all sorts. And what happens with these companies is they hold these ridiculously huge events all over the world, whether it's China, Hong Kong, America, Berlin or whatever. And as a salesperson that I really was, because I was a shit engineer, this fucking world is littered with my engineering mistakes. So I had to put on these exhibitions and things, and I was always able to gather enough people together for them. And it was that sort of background that gave me a help in doing what we're doing now. But through that as well, we did, on occasions, we did lighting rigs and things like that. But the simple fact is, I was a massive fucking music fan, and I would spend my life pestering PAs and all that, like trying to work out what was going on backstage and things. And just over the years, you crack on with these gigs and things, and you get to know the people and stuff. So that's where my sort of connection with it all came along, and how I met Pup was basically in a field at a gig, rather drunk, and a lifelong friendship was made. So there you go.
I think what you said is exactly the way that probably happens for most people. Just a coincidence, conversation, or a right place. But after decades of going to festivals and gigs, you eventually dial in on the faces, and you dial in on a group of people. And we've been really lucky over the years that we've had people who are anything from florists right through to hardcore musicians. We've got a full spectrum of friends.
Yeah.
I think I got my break, and I'll shout out Phil and Carrie, because they were one of the original crowd of the Damnation crew. And they had a sort of toe in the water with that festival. And Phil in particular still does the announcing for Damnation. He works behind the scenes at Download. He's a really solid guy. And it was Phil. He had seen me do a bit of band management. He had seen me do gigs and one dayers and things like that. And he said to me, do you want to come into Damnation and get involved? So I've been working crew for Damnation for a few years. Big respect to Gav and to Paul Fro, who run that event. Those guys give me my proper break, and they sort of taught and mentored me to say, if I want to do this, they just said, go for it. So they give me the energy to do it. I was lucky enough that I know my way behind the stage. I never really wanted to be the front of stage guy. So that, we're in a really lucky position that we've got Mike, who understands sales, business, marketing. You've got me, who knows enough of the technical to be dangerous and knows some of the agents, some of the management companies, got the fingers in a few pies. You've also got my wife, Emma, who's a supply chain professional. So she fully understands end-to-end contract management, logistics, everything that we need to make the engine turn. And then obviously we've got Jane, who's Mike's wife, and she's got a complete knowledge of finance, and she's one of the most structured people I've ever met. And the four of us kind of make the perfect corners of this square.
Yeah. You're well punching above there then, Mike.
Oh, mate.
Which Mike? Hang on.
Unbelievable. I don't even fucking deny it anymore. I just wake up every morning and clap my hands together and get on with the rest of the day.
We must admit, we're both punching above our weight. It must be said. We're really, just by a chance conversation, just to bring that home, I think when the girls got involved, because I was, at the beginning, I was super territorial about the whole thing. I like, stay off my stage and you cannot talk to, and I was super territorial. And then Mike and my wife in particular, Emma, said, look, you've just got to let it go.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, all right, I'll give that a try.
How bad can it be?
Yeah.
But it's worked out because we've naturally fell into our strengths.
Yeah.
And those are the things that need to happen. We need someone who's technical. We need someone who's sales and marketing savvy. We need the supply chain expert, and we need someone who just really has a control of the budget.
Yeah.
So we've been quite fortunate.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it was like the perfect storm without ever realizing it, and then it all just melded together nicely, really.
So that nucleus of the two families, really, I guess that'll remain whatever goes forward. That's as you get a bit bigger, you might need some additional kind of boots on the ground, but the nucleus is there, and that's you guys, which I guess making decisions is a lot quicker, and you can you can all jump on Pup when he wants to stick another 6 bands on the list, or you can stop you offering crazy deals, and everyone's there to kind of to get into it, and it's not some procrastinated, drawn out management change.
It really is. It's one of those things where over the years, 20, 30 years, I've been in business. I've worked for small companies. I've worked for big companies. And I've never felt anything like this, where you get that flexibility of, yes, we're going to do this. We'll discuss this. We'll argue about this. Decisions are made fucking really quick compared to anything I've been in before. And it's brilliant because we at one point, especially with the lineup, as he said, he was quite territorial, and he was like, "This is mine. Nobody else touch it. It is my decision." But we were all going, "Well, actually, we love them. Not too sure about them. Really like them. Wouldn't want to put them on in any chance night in a day." But then it all it rattled together at such a pace, and I think that's what surprised us all the first time round. And there was one day in particular, I remember, we pretty much set the Friday night within a space of an hour, the whole lot. And it was like, Christ, I wonder if this is how it is at the bigger festivals. I doubt it is, but suddenly it just smash. And that was with a load of cock-ups as well. But there you go. Never mind. And tales for another day.
I mean, don't get us wrong, Neil. I think that there can be friction in any relationship, but what we're finding is we've got high trust.
Did you look over his shoulder before he said that?
Yeah, exactly. So if we tend to have a blow-up, it's up and down in a day, and then Michael just phoned me up and say, "Pick up the phone, you dick." Yeah, and I was like, "Yeah, okay, mate." And then it's just done, and we just move on.
Or vice versa.
We are 1-1 at the moment, I think, aren't we?
Yeah, we've had one tantrum each.
One tantrum each. So yeah, Yeah,
Hey,
it's working. Yeah.
But as you say, as with all good relationships, be it their, mates, business partnerships, you've got to be able to vent when you need to vent, and then bury the hatchet. You can't carry that grudge.
I mean, that's super important, because both me and Mike, when we've both had a tantrum, we've both started with a conversation, let's not lose the friendship. We'd rather lose the event than lose the friendship. And I think that means that trust, that tribal piece is, that just takes away all of the ego, all of the bullshit, and and you just make the decisions and push on.
Yeah, and I guess being with the other part, with the other halves, that's also a risk as well. You don't want the kind of the business to spill over into the bedroom, for want of a better term. You don't want to be waking up with a cold shoulder every morning because you've decided you wanted Napalm Death and she wanted fucking the Black Crows. It's got.
Yeah, actually, that could actually happen in my house.
Okay, so wait, that's probably 2023's lineup.
I'm also thinking that's not necessarily a bad thing.
I'm just grabbing a pen here for a second.
A bit of anger banging to keep it alive, man.
Anger banging. My God, you're a classy date, aren't you?
I'm an easy one. I don't even mind admitting it. As Mike said, I am punching well above, and I don't even fucking argue about it anymore.
Brilliant. So you kind of touched on it then about kind of arguing about lineups and bands. What's your, the pair of you, what are your kind of, what bands do you gravitate towards? I've got a feeling, that you've got a bit of a light and dark mix going on. So do you want to kind of elaborate who's the one likely to have a bandana tied to his pocket and wearing cowboy boots, and who's the one likely to put on corpse paint?
Wow. I'm going to take my shoes off a minute. Sorry about this.
Watch you don't dig your spurs into the carpet.
Yeah, I know. They keep ripping the bed sheets. My wife goes fucking mental when I do that.
I'm the 80s thrash kid. I grew up through the 70s with the stadium rock, and I started properly cutting my teeth with gigs when Aussie was a complete chaos mess. But all of the big thrash bands started to come through. We were getting the tail end of some of the punk going into doom and grind. So I was gigging as a teenager at a time where the music was astonishingly powerful and everything was dangerous. So don't get me wrong, I will more than happy go with Mike and watch Kiss and just sing our heart out. But I think if you cut me through the middle, you'd probably find the big four surrounded by some doom and grind, surrounded by some black and spiky horribleness.
Yeah. I mean, you can't knock what you said there, mate. They are, and you've nailed me to the flag there. Yeah, those my bands. The big sort of stadium bands that came out of the 80s and the 90s. Yeah, that's where I got my sort of music taste from. But like your man said there's been many a time and many a gig or festival that we've been to together where you stood in a field, you're bouncing around, you go from one stage to the other, to the other, to the other, and you end up just finding so much stuff that's just absolutely brilliant that you wouldn't normally listen to. But with me, it's always gone back to those. I was born in '79, so I'm not young, but I'm not old. Let's put it that way. And all those bands that came out, the Aerosmiths, the Motley Crues, all that lot. That was where I first sort of got my taste from. But then it's developed over the years.
They were all bloated drug addicts by the time you kind of. The fact they've probably been through cleanup by the. They spent more time in the Betty Ford clinic than Ozzy by then.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, the Motley Crue are more than capable of ripping your face off even today.
And they always were, they were angry little bastards at the start, weren't they?
Yeah, they were, and I mean, and I loved all that stuff, and I still do to this day. And some of the best memories I've got is watching those kind of bands. And yet, the last gig I did go to, barring obviously the Tanking number one, was I did 4 out of the UK gigs that Slipknot did last year when they released the new album, and just still the same, fucking brilliant, just messy. So a bit of everything. It's what's good for you, isn't it?
But you'll see that starting to reflect in our lineup. You'll see that eclectic mix.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and like I said before, because I've let go and I've actually learned to listen a bit. Those conversations about, well, do we just want a thrash event, and we'll just let Pup off the leash and he'll book 20 thrash bands, or do you want a death event? And I think we kicked it around for a while, and we kind of like those events that have got a terrorizer stage, and yet they've got an indie stage in the same venue, and we kind of like that vibe. Yeah. So I think you said it, Neil, that sort of light and dark.
Yeah, it works brilliant.
We've started to think about the lineup in that way. What would be the light day? What would be the dark day? And then what would be the happy medium?
And it was a nice split, really, wasn't it? That first one was, well, why don't you take the Friday, you take the Saturday, we'll mash them together, and if there's anything comes up we're not happy with, or we really like, or we want to suggest for the other, well, let's give it an airing. And that's how it worked. And in the end, it came down to, if we liked it, we were convinced that the public, the masses, whatever you want to call it, were also going to like it, because it came from a place of real trust and faith in the fucking music, which is all you ask for.
Especially on T1, you know, as you say, the 50 people there were mainly your mates. So if you can't get your musical taste, even if you're one of these annoying bastards that goes, listen to this, you would hope that at least you've got a good gauge of your, you know, in these. You know, I know 50 is quite a big, you know, there's friends and mates, but at least, you know, you would hope that you've got a fairly good kind of,
I mean,
compromise on that. But moving forward, that gets harder, I guess, doesn't it? You know, if you're going to go for a bigger audience.
Exactly. I mean, we didn't. Let's be honest. We didn't set the world alight with our ticket sales in the first gig. I think when we came to it, it was either 83 or 84 tickets actually sold. But out of that, you know, 99% of them have come back for T2 purely because we got it right, and you know, circumstances meant they couldn't make the second version. And then we've opened it up, and it's become a bit more public and everything. And we're aiming for sort of 250 this time around because it's word of mouth and stuff. So we've got our heads together and gone, this is what we think will work. This is what worked last time. This bit didn't work, so fucking bin that, but bring this in. And all you can say is, I keep coming back to, if Pop and I like it, and whilst we have, you know, differing tastes and a good set of arguments on occasions, that we'll catch something for everybody, basically. And that's where we're at.
That's a brilliant segue into kind of the conversation of next. You know, 2021's event was all set. You know, me tickets in my inbox. Kind of obviously you'd done the rounds. You'd come up with a pretty strong. Yeah, there's not in that my inbox like in a physical copy. You know, you come up with a pretty solid lineup. You know, there was, as you say, a good mixture of kind of everything from, you know, your kind of you got Kieran and Ashen Crown with some nice gutturals, and you got H&P doing, you know, lunatic thrashers come back from 30 years of break, and you know, so so you had a really you set a really good lineup, and you know, once again, and probably, you know, killed you even more this year than it did you last year. You know, you've had to take apart. So
it was an absolute heartbreaker, because we had a healthy budget for 2020.
We did.
But the problem is you couldn't get anybody to play.
No.
So we had the same contacts as what we had in 2021, 2022. We had the network, but none of the bands had practiced. Nobody could just jump in a car, rock up and put on a show that's going to be of any quality.
Yeah.
And it was only the bands who lived locally, who could keep their hands in, and the really professional touring bands who could just switch it on. Yeah. It was hard. And people, like, even within Acid Rain, there was members of Acid Rain who were saying, look, we're close to shielding. We love what you're doing in 2020, but can we just wait till 2021?
Yeah.
Because we just don't want to take the risk.
No, exactly. And, with people living with elderly relatives or, other, people are still super cautious, and rightly so, especially, it's not like it's fine when you're putting a load of 16-year-old kids on stage, but when you're all kind of grown-ups with families and real lives, you have to take all those other considerations into account.
And then you've got the other side. You've got the other side of the coin as well, though. You've got people like Hamish, who just wants to gig every day he possibly can, and then you've got someone like Harry from Blind River, who I think he went for 365 gigs in a year. I don't know how far he got with it. I'll have to ask him about that. But he set out to do 365 gigs in a year. So I'll have to find out about that one. So there's people who were desperate for gigs, and Mike and Emma and Jane telling me to wind my neck in, and having that realization that even just with our friends, we've got friends who like Black Crows, we've got friends who like Black Sabbath, we've got friends who like Behemoth. So we've got, even if we're just within our mates, we've got an eclectic taste.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, let's just try and find a balance for 2021. And we said, okay, we're going to go for a thrash band because I'm not going to let it go. And then we're going to go for a really powerful rock metal band. Mike had about 3 or 4 cards on the table. I had about 3 or 4 cards on the table. And we got it down to Ricky Warwick. We signed a deal with Ricky Warwick. We signed a deal with Acid Rain. Me and Mike were joking about it and saying, I've got to go to the train station, pick up Ricky Warwick, and take him out for a pizza. And it's just like, what? I saw you on the Almighty at Donington when I was a kid.
And I think this was the beauty of it. We didn't actually go out for Ricky Warwick, did we? It wasn't the ones we'd lined up when we were talking about it. It came about through a manager or something, that they actually came to us and said, would you like Ricky Warwick? And we had to have that conversation, which didn't last very fucking long. Would you like Ricky Warwick? Yes. Fucking do it. And then we had to
try not to look so keen.
Then we had to apologise. Basically, we said yes. And then we had to apologise to the wives that we just fucking doubled the budget, basically.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. Oh, by the way, stick an extra 0 on the end of that.
But Ricky's a really interesting kind of slot on the bill, because actually, if you go back to kind of those late 80s, early 90s, the Almighty was kind of a little bit acceptable to us thrashers. You weren't. It was. Well, and I suppose he was, he's married to Vanessa at the time, which gave him extra kudos. But he kind of, but that you weren't completely ostracised if you said, I don't mind a bit of an Almighty, or I don't mind a bit of Guns N' Roses, because they were kind of, it wasn't hair rock, it wasn't all backcomb bouffants and lipstick. There was a little bit of, so I think and the same with even as a non-thrasher, you can't go without watching H act like a lunatic for 40 minutes, without kind of appreciating what they do, and even if you're not a massive thrash fan. So you've got a couple of kind of really key bands there that, even though they sit in their own swim lanes, have got some kind of lateral movement.
And we're seeing that for 2022. So H has already said to me, we'd love to stay and watch Censor, because they're huge fans of Censor.
Yeah.
And we were joking. I said, do you want me to take you off the headliner spot? And they were like, no. just leave me in the headliner spot.
But I'm half in your fee, H. Yeah.
But exactly. So it was those kinds of discussions about, because any promoter will tell you, you've got to get some toe in the swimming pool and a foot on the ladder with some level of credibility to say, hey, look, we're here, trust in us, we're credible, we've got a budget, we're reliable. You've got to go through all of those exercises with the agents and the managers, and occasionally, which I prefer not to do, but you do sometimes have to talk to bands.
Yeah.
And then it's an expectation thing, because they want triple Marshall stacks, and they want like 15 drum kits and all the lights and pyro and everything, and we're just like, whoa, hang on. So you've got to get that level up. You've got to just get that credibility going. But when you're there, it's amazing how quickly things can happen.
So is there an element of that kind of who the fuck are you at the start? You know, I suppose because you've got a bit of you've got a bit of a background and you've got some connections, that's kind of the sting's taken out of that. You can imagine if you're a first time, you know, if you're Gary from Essex who decides he's going to put on a festival because he likes underground metal and he's, you know, what do you do for a living, Gary? You know, I work in the butchers, but I'm going to put this gig on. There's a whole credibility issue that you've got to overcome to allow you to do that. But I guess, you know, because of your background, because of some of the things you've done, you managed to at least, you know, scrabble on the bottom rungs to, you know, at least let people talk to you. You know, it's not, you know, junk mail, fuck off.
Yeah.
We had credibility. I mean, we built the website. We made sure that we had the right infrastructure in place. And again, Jane and Emma, I've got to give them credit to just making sure it was slick. So it wasn't just a phone calls from a mobile saying, do me a favor, can I book Exodus? It wasn't that kind of vibe.
But can you?
Well, but to take your point though, I mean, Mike's been around the block, I've been around the block. So we knew within a range what the general bands and artists would cost within a range.
Yeah.
So we weren't highballing and we weren't lowballing. We knew kind of where to put the initial incision in to say, just to make an offer.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're going to go after a band like Acid Rain, like exactly the same as what we did, have a think in nobody's going to tell you how much you need to pay for Acid Rain. Nobody's going to do that.
Yeah. H only accepts green jelly babies on a Thursday night. And, you know, that's, no one's going to tell you where to pitch it, I guess. Because
it's a toe in the air every time, isn't it? And, you know, I think we've both stalked enough bands in our history and stuff that we knew them enough to go out to them to at least get that first interview question with them to say, would you consider an independent festival? And I think it was a real steep learning curve to get to the point that you're on about, you know, how much do they charge? What is it they want?
Yeah.
What's on the fucking rider? You know, those weird little questions. Suddenly, it all came together.
Is there a risk at that point? Is the budget suddenly goes?
Oh, mate!
No, you're paying. Yeah.
If I had my way, absolutely.
You'd be paying for Gual's fucking fake semen, and you'd have ghosts and Rammstein's lighting, and you know,
it's splaftastic. Splaftastic.
I mean,
even now, let's be honest, Pup. We're still arguing over the lineup now. Even though we know it's already spent. And
we haven't printed the T-shirts yet.
While the T-shirts aren't printed, it's okay. But you and I are on that fine line now where you and I are really happy, but we know the women are just sat there quietly going, if he puts another fucking band on, I am going to lose my shit. And we're quietly going, but I've got this one in the background and I could juggle things a little.
So, should we go to 5 days a week instead of just 3 days?
Can we make that a bank holiday Monday?
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Nobody is going anywhere at this point in time, so we can make it the whole 10 days if we really wanted to.
Honestly, let's not do that. I just could not cope with that amount of chaos. Because you've got to deal... I mean, it's all the little things, Neil, that any promoter will tell you. You've got to be honest. You've got to be credible. You've got to work within a range. And you're not going to highball an offer because the agent will take your arm off and then add another 1 or a 0 to that number.
He sucks his teeth.
So I've had those conversations over a while, and again I'll shout out Gavin Fro from Damnation because they've given me they haven't given me their pricing structure, but they've just gave me a bit of a steer.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew within a range what we're going for. And then obviously Emma, especially Jane, will say, look, yes, you can book this band. But if you book this band, you've wiped out your undercard for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we always set out to say every band gets paid.
Yeah.
We would like to go not just for fuel and beer money. We'd like them to have a little bit of money in their pocket.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make it worthwhile for them. So yes, we could bite off the 90% on one band just to get the name out there. But then you've ruined the undercard. So we were very passionate. And it's one of the things Mike always reminds me to say, yes, this. but don't forget this as well. So
yeah, and that's kind of one of the interesting things of the lineup. Yeah, we already, Ashen Crown are probably kind of middle tier, next generation of Birmingham death metal. But then you've also kind of picked up a couple of the younger lads. You got Tortured Demon on there. You got Steel Mage. So you've Steel Mage. You've delved into the you've delved into the new wave of UK thrash core. I'll give it the moniker, because they're not these guys are coming at it from a very different angle to we did 30 odd years ago. So they're so even though you've got those. The acid rains, and you've got the the censors and people like that, you're also kind of still supporting the new underground, I guess. The guys who are played a couple of gigs, maybe thinking about doing a Metal to the Masses audition this year and all those sorts of things. You've got that breadth on the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple thing. There is just masses and masses and masses of talent out there that are coming through the ranks, that are maybe even completely unheard of, but are still pushing through and just with a love of the music and a hoping to get there one day and stuff. And it's an amazing array of talent that is coming through no matter what. And when you sort of put these things on, what is brilliant is you get that inrush of people saying, yes, we want to play, because obviously they can't play live at this point in time. But then suddenly, yes, you've got an opportunity to play live, but also you get to sort of show off what you're doing and stuff like that. And it's a really good thing, because there is so much out there. And we got hounded by quite a few bands over the first one and the second one that basically say, come on, let's go. Let's have a crack. Let's have a crack. Let's have a crack. Let's have a crack. And it's hard to turn some of them down. Yeah. But then you've got to think, we've only got a limited amount of period to do it. But otherwise, like we say, it could be 5 or 6, 7 days before you know what's happening.
It's also, bearing in mind, it's now another 12 months away. Yeah, a lot can happen in the life of a band in 12 months.
Christ. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I remember my daughter, she bought, before, remember Jake Bugg? He was, the kind of some indie kid that was like, so he was a nobody, and he was coming to play our local town, and they bought a ticket, and he's playing the local sports social club for a tenner, and it was fucking, in the 6 months between when that tour was booked and it happened, he went through the roof. He'd got like 3 number ones, and they had him over the barrel contractually. He was going to play that game, and it was mobbed. You'd never seen our shitty one-horse town in Somerset was absolutely mobbed for this this young kid. Yeah. But you never know. The Tortured Demon lads have been, they're on a Japanese label, and they, by this time next year, you could have got the deal of the century. You could be
they're going out,
paying them in fucking Haribo and Coke, and they'll all be like,
I was talking to the lads from Zentrix, and I said, you've got Tortured Demon on the Zentrix tour.
Yeah.
And they had heard the music, and they actually never twigged just the age of these guys and the talent that's coming out of this. And they were just like, holy shit, these guys are awesome.
They could be bigger than us by this time next year, yeah.
And look at, I mean, again, just taking festivals like Bloodstock and Damnation and Download. These are things that are on the tip of your tongue. But as Mike said, look at the underground scene that's throughout the UK. Anybody who says metal's dead is dreaming. You've got the 0161 doing an amazing job in Manchester.
Yeah.
You've got the Glasgow scenes going on. The Bristol scene is alive. Newcastle, Birmingham,
Cardiff. Fuel with Eradication
stuff going on there.
Yeah, and obviously 0161 as well as John Badger as well. So you've got Badger Fest up there, which there is as you say, a whole host of people not like to put a big name on there as well. But there's a ton of underground stuff being done as well.
There's probably more underground now than there is of the sort of mainstream big stuff. It seems to have been a kind of a flip-flop. I mean, the big bands will always exist because of the followings and everything, but the underground seems to be slowly but surely creeping up, and it can only be a good thing. It can only be a good thing.
And I guess, we kind of mentioned it, but technology plays a big part of that. You know, you can be like a rock star like Pup at home with your, you know, they don't need all those amps anymore. You know, you plug straight into Pro Tools.
Just a phone.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Plugged into your iPad, and it's created a whole different generation that, you know, I'm sure you were the same, Pup, you know, tape trading and all that sort of stuff. You know, that's instantaneous now. You know, someone drops you an MP3. Do you want to review this? Do you want to, you want to put this on the podcast? Do you want to do, and people can send you music, and, you know, there's so much, you know,
but if you turn
Spotify
that,
and
Neil,
how do you choose a band?
Turn that on its head. There's only so many limited spaces in the football team for all of the festivals.
Yeah.
So equally though, I fully encourage any band to just get out there and throw the music out at as many promoters and venues as you can, because you never know. We had Steel Mage contact us and say, we love Acid Rain. Could we have the opportunity?
Yeah.
They hit us early and we just went, you know what? Fuck it. We'll take them. So it does happen, but equally so, bands need to understand their expectation that comes with that. There's no way, because you've got 500 friends on Facebook, that you're going to drop straight into Donington. So equally so, I don't want to be down on bands, but my message that I want to put out there to anybody listening is just really talk to the agents, the promoters, talk to the people who've been around the block. Manage that expectation that you're not going to springboard into a 30,000 gig. You're going to have to do the 30s. You're going to have to do the 300s.
You have to do the
if you're lucky, you get through the 3000s. But you should. Don't be afraid to reach out to the promoters like Mike and myself, because we love to hear from you.
Yeah. I mean, you were brilliant. Early days, you said you were going to put out an email on the Tanking Club membership thing that you were looking for up-and-coming bands.
Yeah.
And I think you got absolutely swarmed at one point. They were just all over you. And I thought
there's bands that don't have... It's really healthy in that way, because you're getting... I'll call out two bands, Thrash and Wolf Affected. They're already saying to me, can we join your 2021 lineup? and these are bands that I would snap their arm off, because the talent is amazing. Clashmoot's another one. There's all Solar Shift. There's all these bands floating around, especially in and around that Manchester, Birmingham area at the moment. And there's some amazing bands coming out of over the border in Newcastle. And over the border in Glasgow. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. I'm going to get slammed on that one. I'm going to get slammed on that one. So all I would say is, imagine yourself in this situation where you've got a healthy budget. You know you could pull about 3, 4, 5, 6 heavy hitters, but then you've got to pick another 10 from 1,000 that you just want to give a leg up to. But all I would say is, don't stop putting the submissions in. Don't stop approaching people like the promoters and just saying, hey, look, listen to this. Because it does land. It will land. And Michael finds something, and then Michael say, I've had this conversation and this has been recommended. And we've got a street crew, we've got our friends. I get private messages coming through all the time saying, have a listen to this band. And we also, don't get me wrong on this, because we don't want to pitch ourselves, but we are watching the Metal to the Masses. We're watching to all of these funneling events and seeing who's going through and who hasn't quite gone through and who's missed the boat. And we've got a radar on that landscape.
And it's, that route, I think, didn't exist in the old days. It's quite an important, it's not for everybody, and some bands don't perform very well, or as well as, I've seen bands that I thought were brilliant and then make a right fuck up at and they just doesn't work on the night. And young bands have that problem anyway. They can be a bit of a roller coaster. They can be awesome on one night and the next night they sound like shit. But those routes, I think there's a bit more structure in that than there ever was before. But as you say, the volume going into that is really difficult. You've got this funnel, to try and pop out as the next onslaught, and let's use them as a really good, as a thrash site. If you want to kind of be Nige in 35 years' time, how do you get through that funnel? There's because there's a lot of other fuckers, elbowing you in the pit to try and get in that little, that little hot to go and travel the world and be, you know,
you speak to Nige, you speak to Cy or Jeff or any of the band, especially Dave now who come from Bull Riff.
Yeah.
You speak to those guys and they'll tell you the same thing.
Everyone's from Bull Riff.
Put in the grind or join Bull Riff. Put in the grind. Because, I mean, your rods, all the guys like from the Bull Riff guys, the Fallen Fate guys, all of those bands who have gone on to do other things, they have put in the grind.
Yeah. They've earned their stripes,
they've played to 5 people and 2 sheep.
Well,
they know exactly what that looks like.
If they played the Griffin in Bristol, they've definitely paid for that. Yeah. You know, that's it.
That's a good. There was
always.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
It's like that. I mean, I don't really know the Griffin, but I know in Manchester it always used to be, have you played the Star and Garter Cup? If you'd have played it, then it was a tick on your sort of your badge of honour. Then you were allowed to play the next gig, like computer games, next level, next level, next level, and that's the only way it can be, really.
Yeah. And I guess the other flip of that is if you're lucky enough to kind of get swept up in one of the UK tours. So when we finally get back to real life, and although it's quite, I've spoke with a few bands about this, is that, you know, the idea of picking up a local band that you take with you on the whole leg seems to be a bit of a thing of the past now. You know, you might have a local warm-up gig, but these gig packages tend to be, you know, the Bass Strikes Back was a full package. The municipal waste packet was that was a full. There seems to be less and less opportunity for anything more than, you know, you might get to play a local gig and you might, I'm playing a 1,000 venue instead of my normally 50 venue, but you know, you're not going to get. I think getting between areas is really difficult. You know, is getting a London band to go and play a Newcastle gig, and, you know, like my mates in Novichok to go and play down in, you know, play Cobblestones in Bridgewater. You know, that's harder, and it seems to be really hard to get yourselves out of your local scene.
Double-edged sword for me, because I agree with you. If I was a touring band, I want to get that local interest because it's going to sell. Simple as that. It's just economics. So obviously I'm going to do that. So a band from Cardiff who I'm taking to Aberdeen are not going to have the same penetration
as the
local band from Aberdeen who are going to bring 50, 100 of their mates. So you have the economics of it all. And then there's the other side of it as well. It's that whole thing coming back to expectation. If you're going to be a one-hit wonder and be a one gig pony, then go for it. Take those shows because it will get you a degree of exposure to say I've toured.
I played with Annihilator. I played the Sacred
Rise. I mean, those credibility pieces when you're looking at people's electronic press kits and you're looking through what they're doing, just making sure that you've got the strength in there. It's worth it. But I think the problem that you've got is you go from being a 30 to 100 band crowd to suddenly being a 300 to 1,000 crowd for one night. And then you don't want to go back down to doing the 30 people gig.
The following Thursday a bit shit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But Evil Scarecrow are still putting in the miles. You know, bands who are coming through, I really respect. A band like Hands Off Gretel, who I've got a lot of respect for. But God, they work their ass off. And I've seen them play to 20 people, and I've seen them play to 2,000 people. You don't get a full pot every night. But the opportunities are out there.
But if you look back to when we were you know, young, dumb, and full of it, you know, the UK bands that I picked up on were bands that went around the country. You know, I remember first time, you know, it wasn't until 89. I never managed to see Onslaught until they went out with Annihilator back in kind of 89. I
saw that tour in Newcastle.
Acid Rain with Nuclear Assault. You know, so there was a strength that these, you know, back then, young bands who, you know, I know Onslaught were a little bit more mature by then, and, you know, they kind of got a major, but, you know, there was a bit more strength, but I guess they had major label support, which helped on that a little bit as well, you know, which these young kids don't get.
On it as well, though, like saying that they don't get it, I think because of the way modern technology works and social media and things like that, mates, you know, word of mouth gets bands shifting quicker than anything nowadays, which is something that didn't happen back in the day. And I think that's a huge thing, because now when you're saying, like, who do you pick to go on tour? these larger bands, these arena bands, stadium bands, they have an absolute plethora to choose from of people firing and music saying, we would love to play with you. And it can only be a good thing, really, can't it, that these are coming through?
You want people to be hungry. You don't want to be too easy, do you?
But there's things that...
You never want to be too easy.
There's things that still ring true, even back to the 80s.
Yeah.
Yes, your friends are going to come to your gigs. Actually, your friends are probably not. Your friends are probably not going to come to your gigs.
Only if you put them on the list.
Yeah, if you put them on the guest list because you've been round the block and you've done 5 gigs.
Yeah. You've got to give them 10 Jaeger bombs for them to turn up now.
I have some really interesting conversations with bands to saying, what's better? Is it better to have a manager? Is it better to have an agent? Is it better to have a publicist? I talk to this a lot. And to take your point, I think for bands who are coming through who are at a high caliber, and Mike will tell you that the standard is, I mean, I can noodle about a bit on guitars, but the standard that's coming through today is, it's mind-blowing for what I used to do.
Unbelievable.
But it's who's going to manage your affairs. Are you really going to be the guitarist who picks up the phone and phones whichever band? I mean, you've called out some there. So take Machine Head are coming over and doing a UK. Are you going to pick up the phone and phone at Machine Head and say, "Oh, it's Mike from Motorhead"? Motorhead, you might get away with
Bob's Rockets,
So, it's one of those things. Your Facebook and your publicity and your self-promotion with that punk rock DIY ethos will get you to a point.
Yeah.
But when you're starting to think about that point where you're really battle ready and you want to do tours, you really have to make that business decision to say, are we doing this or are we not? And that's where you're probably at the tipping point where you need management or agencies.
So part of this series is that's some of the things I'm going to cover. So I'm going to talk to a PR company. I'm going to talk to a management company. I'm going to talk to a booker, because they've all got, and the overlap is, quite difficult. And because I'm on the receiving end a lot of these, I get certain PR companies send me a lot of music, and I get a lot of and are you managing these guys, or are you just kind of promoting them for this one album, or and then you've got the guys who are managers who but they tend to focus on the booking. They're all about gigs, they're all about getting them shows, and that's a really interesting, and it's a difficult thing to understand when we spoke about both Steel Mage and Tortured Demon. The youngest guys in those bands are 14.
Unbelievable.
But how much business? We're fucking stupid at fucking 40 odd. How much business centre did I have at 14? I could barely manage to get out of my part-time job on a Saturday past HMV without spending all my money on fucking merch. So you need that help, I think.
It's unbelievable as well. I mean, not only are these guys at 14 super fucking talented, but they have this understanding of what the industry is and things like that. And I honestly, I'm 40 plus, I still don't understand the industry. And I look at these lads that are, that are 14, like you mentioned, and I'm thinking, I was slinging frozen fish in a fucking market for 20 quid a day at that age. I certainly wasn't playing guitar at any fucking level, and I'm still not playing guitar.
Some things don't change.
So what the fuck happened? How is this possible? And all you can do is fucking wish them the very best and hope for God that they've absolutely nailed it. It's just unbelievable. It's amazing, really, when you think about it.
The barriers that were around me as a teenager are not there now. I think the bands that I aspired to watch in my 20s are now my age. They're in their 40s, touching on 50s. So they've grown up as I've grown up.
Yeah.
But the barriers that were there for me to approach a band like Creator are just not there now. You can interact with them socially. You can ask them questions. And they'll give you the time of day. Yeah. So just simple things like reaching out to, like you've already mentioned, Nige Rocket. Reaching out to Nige Rocket and saying, Nige, can I just ask your opinion on this? I'm thinking about doing a European tour. Have you got any advice? Nige is a reasonable guy. He'll come back to you and he'll say to you, actually, you know what you need is a really good agent.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's the difference now, Neil, that there's better opportunities for the bands not to get ripped off.
Yeah.
I think I'd love to think the days of pay to play are a thing of the past, although I do know there are people who are still doing that, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
The days of saying you can come on my festival, but you have to sell 100 tickets, I think those days are gone. I'd love to think so. I'd like to think so. So there's better opportunities, but I think what bands don't realize, especially new bands who are coming through, is that mentor avenue is actually available to them. Bands are approachable these days.
Yeah, and I don't think, I think, as you say, although we were quite close in age to them, there was still a little element of, I use hero worship, but what I mean. But there was a gap between, even though the guys were only a couple of years older, being in that close proximity was quite special.
They're rock stars.
Yeah, exactly. I had a mate of mine who she was dating Tony from Cerebral Fix. And they all used to, in Birmingham, we all used to drink in Costermongers and sat at the table. I was a massive Benediction fanboy. Yeah. And you had, after Barney had left, there was Dave and all the other, and it was like, wow. It's like, fucking hell. But now you do, Dave takes fucking messages on Facebook from any fucking weirdo. It's kind of like, it's amazing. And I think they were always approachable, but I think, maybe I was just a bit shy, and I was scared to do it. Yeah. But these kids today have got balls of steel. They'll go and fucking talk to anyone.
It's a really weird but brilliant thing at the same time, isn't it? Because, rock stars back in the day, they were untouchable. You couldn't get near them. You couldn't speak to them and things like that. But I can tell you a couple of stories. And one involving Pup, in fact, involving Pup's brother, where we all got to meet Kiss. And Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons were actually stroking Pup's brother's beard, and this was a major event in again. It's going to sound weird. He's also called fucking Mike, so it gets a bit confusing and things, Paul and stuff. So it gets a bit up there, but they're stroking his beard, and we're just stood there like, is this really happening? Kind of that moment. But it's become more accessible, really. I think with the invention of Facebook and all that fucking bollocks that goes with it, it's both a beauty and a crippler, really, isn't it? But it works a treat, and you get those little things where you're like, yes, that makes sense. Thank God for that. Happy days.
I just can't imagine being a front of house rock star today. No, because you just must not get any peace. But equally so, though, that as you touched on it before, a lot of the heavy money has dropped out.
Yeah.
So bands are having to reinvent, and they're going to have to come to the social conversations.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to get in touch with the technology and actually still touch the millennials and the next generations of people coming through. So I really love what's going on at the moment. There's a really healthy vibe of the people who are still like, oh yeah. But equally so, you can reach out to them and say, this is what I'm thinking. Do you have any advice? Or you can even just throw a question into a group.
Yeah.
And heaven forbid that we live in a world of heavy metal where there's virtually no trolls.
Yeah.
Very, very few trolls. You can genuinely ask a question without looking like a complete tool.
Yeah.
And someone will give you some advice.
Yeah.
I mean, the beauty of it is as well, it means for me and Pup, it does make it that little bit easier where we go out to a larger band and sort of say, do you know what? Would you consider this idea of this independent festival in this unique little venue? What do you think? We've never been told a flat out no. We've had a lot of maybes, but we've had a few that are considering it for the next year. So it's not all bad.
We've had one or two who have just went, damn it, I wish I'd said yes.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful place to be in as promoters.
A retrospective.
There's been a few people who have just went, oh my God, they've got them on the bill, or they've got this on the bill. And they're just, exactly that. And you're just like,
lovely.
No second chances around here.
No, they're always you never ever burn your bridges. Never burn your bridges, because as you're going down, someone's coming up.
Someone's going to give you that leg up again in the future.
Yeah, there's a gorgeous bit as well where the bands that have played there are telling other bands, you won't believe this. This is what they did. This is how they looked after us. This is what we got from this. And then we've had the sort of roll-on bit, like the Ricky Warwick thing, where they then came to us and went, can we play your festival? And you're like, fucking hell, never expected that.
I really have to think about that.
Yeah, so it's all good.
So, as you get bigger and you're booking more bands and more talent, and you spoke about reading contracts and asking advice. Yeah. What's the you mentioned a rider there? What's the weirdest shit you've ever been asked for?
Oh, ever or at the
moment? You can start with kind of shorter term. What's Kieran asked for Ashen Crown next year? Because that would just take the piss out of him. And then a bit wider. What's weird shit? And I suppose you've seen some bizarre crap coming in through Damnation. Virgin's blood and dead chickens and things.
Right, Mike, I'm going to have to entirely leave you for this because you have far more knowledge than I do. But two, because my back teeth are floating, so I will disappear and I shall be back momentarily. I apologise.
Yeah, a moment of silence, it's fine.
A moment of silence, there you go.
Yeah, fun things. I mean, for the tanking, I think you get the standard stuff, like can we have accommodation, can we have some food? Everybody's happy with the technical spec. But then you'll get the odd hand grenade coming over the fence. So to be fair to Kieran and Ashen Crown, they are super clean. They are just like, this is what we do, this is what we want. People get upset about the beer. If you give them a San Miguel instead of a Stella, that's the little things as a promoter which can fuck up your whole day. Yes. Because you've given them a single malt instead of a bourbon. And don't think, Kieran, you're getting a single malt. That's not happening. Stick to what's in your agreement.
You're not getting a fucking bourbon either. Yeah.
So, although I don't like to do it, we have a standard agreement. Say, look, that's what you're going to get. The fee is locked in, the equipment, the backline, all the lighting, everything's locked in. That's standard practice. But we have a simple agreement in the absence of anything else. Because what you don't want is Emma or Jane or Mike getting pestered to say, oh, can we have an extra 5 burgers or 10 pizzas or fish and chips or a bottle of scotch? We can just say, look, that's what you signed on for. That's what you knew you were getting. Go to the bar.
Yeah.
So once you've got through all those headaches, it's fine. And it's a standard practice. I think the bands who have been around the block, they know if they're doing a headlining show, which they are in control of the changeovers, the sound check and everything else, or whether they're doing a headline festival show or a special guest festival show where they know, right, I've got half an hour to change over. There's only so many things I can do. I'm not going to get a 60-minute sound check. We just need to rock and roll. So you always get the technical aspects, which we need to iron out. And then you get the stupid stuff. you get the stupid stuff. Who can I say that I can't say? We looked at a legendary band, but who's not metal, possibly punk, but I won't mention names. And the rider was phenomenal. The rider was more than the fee. And we're just like, oh my God. Equally so, and I'm going to call out Evil Scarecrow, and I hope that you're watching, because some of the things on Evil Scarecrow, can we have a plug at the front of the stage? Yeah, why we can do that? Why do you want a plug in the stage? Because we've got an anti-gravity machine. Right, have I got anti-gravity machine in the risk assessment? I'll just pop down to the local safety action group and say, I've got a van coming with an anti-gravity machine.
On that, yeah.
Keeping in mind we're not far from one of the UK's biggest military bases. You're going to tell them that we're bringing in UFOs and anti-grav machines to this gig. So the stupid stuff like that. But it's the little stuff. It's the little things which are super important. And Mike said it before. You get the little stuff right, and then it cascades, and those are the things that I'll miss, which are the things that Mike picks up and Emma picks up and Jane picks up, and they've got those level of details, because I'm just like stage bands and it's those little nuances, like towels, because some of the bands are on tour, they just want a shower. Yeah. Some of them want vegan food, some of them have got gluten-free allergies, some of them And some even stupid things like, can I have one of your T-shirts? And we're working on margins. And
giving away that T-shirt is my profit. Yeah.
So it's margins all the time. But you get some. Parking is always a fun one.
Is there like bus wars? Is it like kind of Mad
total
Max
hierarchy?
It is
total hierarchy. You spend more time on itinerary, inbound, outbound, than what you do of the actual focus of the show as a promoter.
Yeah.
There's stupid little things like that.
Yeah, When the lads from Tortured Demon are piling out the Mum's Mini Metro with all their gear, and an Acid Rain are trying to unload. So
I'll give you an exclusive for your listeners, especially with Tortured Demon and Steel Mage, and this is an exclusive. We had to allocate them a private dressing room
because of the rage.
And that's something as a promoter you would never consider, because you just cycle bands through and you want everybody to have some breathing space before and breathing space after. And we've got green rooms and all that usual stuff behind the stages and whatnot. But then we're like, no, actually, legally, they've got to have chaperones. They've got to have private things.
You're into kind of CCB, and you've got to go for your kind of police checks and all that other stuff.
So we're lucky because we've got some of that in play.
Yeah.
So we're already lucky on that respect. But these are things that you wouldn't normally consider as a promoter or a booker.
Yeah.
You're just running a gig, and it's a gig for grown-ups, and it's a gig for heavy metal fans, and everybody's going to be drunk, and you're more worried about who's going to fall over.
That was one of those oxymorons, wasn't it? Grown-up and heavy metal fans. I'm not sure that's
growing out.
Post-lockdown out.
Yeah. It's the weird thing, because we've kind of got we've always discussed this. Have we got an age limit on the tickets? We've never thought about putting an age limit on the bands. You know what I mean? It's quite a strange one.
It's not like you're a pub, is it, where you've got to worry about your licensing laws or kind of any of that sort of stuff?
It always reminds me of that daft old joke, you know, rock out with your cock out. Well, now some of the bands are turning up, it's jam out with your mam out. What the fuck's happening there?
So you look at what's happening on the landscape at the moment, the amount of female-led bands. We book bands because we're good. We don't book them because they're male or female. We just love what they're doing. But I think if you look at our lineup, I think it's almost a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Of where we've got female fronted bands or female guitarists, bass players, drummers, whatever. Yeah. So equally so, you've got to think about, as a man, you've got to think about the infrastructure that's needed.
Yeah.
The separation, the support, anything they need. We've got to think about these things, which is why, again, Emma and Jane are a godsend, because we'll go in there and say, it's got 2 urinals and it's got a bar. Everything's fine.
Urinals and a bar's fine, one trap for 35,000 people.
Yeah, that would be fine.
It's the lovely, and we've spoke about the little touches and things like, last year when we ran it, Mike and I, we had to go through all that health and safety and all that malarkey, and it was a real pain in the balls. But then as we got to the actual gig, and there's no two ways about it, within minutes of trying to open the actual gig, we were still screwing signs to walls and ticking boxes and things like that. And the 2 Dorises ran out and came back with these lovely little boxes with a little bow on it, to put into the ladies' urinals, so that the ladies could look after themselves over the weekend. We hadn't for 1 second thought about that sort of.
But the girls sweat,
little packet of Lillettes and wet wipes and things. You're like,
and the guys ended up being more needy. the guys were way more needy.
And this is it. We'd pick these sort of female bands and things to play, and we hadn't considered it for a second. And, it's our fault entirely. But, the women came in and absolutely sorted that out and pulled us out the muck, really, to be fair.
Yeah, because even though we all think we're modern men, we're completely clueless when it comes to that shit.
Yeah.
It's super important
in the bedroom. Yeah.
It's super, super important. And I've seen it in Damnation that you're not just dealing with male, female, there's all those shades in between. And as promoters, bookers, infrastructure, when you're looking at all those stuff, the dedicated toilets, what works, what doesn't work. Yeah. And again, coming back to that membership thing, just throwing a question out there in a safe environment where you're not going to get nailed to the wall. Just throwing something out there saying, should I be thinking about this? Should I be thinking about that?
Unisex toilets and
And even something as simple as disability access. We're getting questions now. Is it wheelchair friendly?
Yeah.
And you've got to think about all of these permutations, because the difference between going from a club to going to a public event, it has to be all things to all people.
Yeah, you've got certain guidelines you have to set.
Correct. And you are also culpable and liable. So you have to be careful. And that's a watch out for any would-be promoters out there. Having a gig to your friends and putting on a show to 50 is one thing, but going to 300 to 3,000 to 30,000, you need to be really on point with the regulatory.
And I guess not just doing it, but also making sure you're not excluding people. Exclusion's a massive thing. I couldn't attend your gig because you didn't have access, or I couldn't sit here.
Yeah, no rounds.
I had no visit. You straight away you're into a litigation purely because they were denied access on those on those grounds. So I guess it's a bit of a minefield.
You're kind of up for a dicking, really, if you get these little things wrong or you overlook them for whatever reason. Yeah, they can come out. It's quite fucking hairy, really, and it's not the thing that, as gig goers or promoters, you really consider until you're in that firing line of it. When Pup and I were going through the rules and regulations of what we could and couldn't do, and the health and safety and all that aspects and the risk analysis, and you're going, fucking hell, we only wanted to get a few people in a field with a few bands on, and all of a sudden I think I'm liable for a shitload of stuff I hadn't considered.
I've got to build a wheelchair ramp, and I've got to do this, and I've got
But equally so, though. I mean, the venue owner was super supportive of that feedback, because we were telling him things that he wanted to do bike rallies and weddings, and didn't really think about the musical aspect. And it wasn't until me and Mike went to him and said, look, this is a prime venue opportunity. You're out in the sticks. We've not got any noise bleed. We've got good access in, good access out. It's easy to control, and it's quite insular when you're there. It's a really nice vibe. So he was really open to the whole thing about wheelchairs, disability, LGBTI, all of that sort of stuff.
Grows his business, I guess.
It just opened his mind to what the possibilities were. But again, all of these things that we're whinging about, all of these things, it all just falls off when that first guitar just goes twang.
Do you remember there was a brilliant moment, Pop, where we were fucking blind out panicked on the very last day. We'd got together the day before, and of course we'd sank a few too many, and we were dicking around in the hot tub and stuff. And then we got up really late in the morning. We got to the gig, and we're trying to put all those last bits of signs together, and we're wiring cables around and putting, the black and fucking yellow tape everywhere. And there was this brilliant moment where Puck was on the stage. I think I was trying to shuffle tables and chairs together for those people that were sat at the back that could have their quiet little moment. And he just sort of comes to me. He's like, come here. So I can run over. I'm like, what is it? And he goes, look at what we've fucking done. And there's that moment where you're like, yes. And it's that Kevin Costner, if you build it, they will come moment. And moments after that, and I can tell you now, I was screwing like 6-inch nails through this fucking board into this brickwork.
You can tell you're a shit engineer if you were screwing nails.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Well, you know what I mean? I was drilling nails then, you smart ass, into this fucking brickwork, which has been there for 100 years. So that gives you an idea. To get this final, the bar is this way, the dance floor is this way, sort of thing, into it. And I can hear people lining up outside. And we were on the fucking moments before Jane and Emma were then stood at the door with their little tags to get everybody's temperature. It was such a fucking finite detail, which could have gone pear-shaped, and yet immediately went fucking bob on, here you go. In everybody came, and mayhem happened for the weekend. It was brilliant.
Next question that I'll edit out if the answer's not legal. You've got Tank Girl as your logo. She's dotted around all over the place. Is that something I should be asking? Or are you likely to have a copyright infringement banged on you at any point in the near future?
No, it's fine. So we've got a professional artist, and I'll shout out Brian Utter Madness. He gives us an idea of what we can do and what we can do, shouldn't do, definitely cannot do. And if we give him 2 cream eggs and a Twix, he might do some work for us. Yeah. So I had said to him, I'd floated the idea to him to say, look, I'm really interested in Tank Girl because I love the comics, I love the graphic novels. We're close to Catrick. Yeah. So we wanted that tank motif. But both Mike and I agreed we didn't want it to be just masculine army. We wanted something not quite Riot Girl, but we wanted a happy medium, that it wasn't just naturally going to be a testosterone fueled tank.
You didn't want it all covered in camouflage and
exactly.
Big boots.
So we were trying to find a middle girl, and the artistry for Tank Girl fitted perfectly. And if you're doing something for 50 of your mates, you could probably get away with it because you're not commercially using that artwork,
all that stuff. Yeah.
So yes, we did a backdrop and we did a banner and stuff like that, and we had it on our very private website, and nothing was public. Yeah. However, when I said to Brian, look, we're thinking about going public, and we're going to be selling to the public, so there'll be an unknown element. He said to me, look, you're straight into copyright law. There's things that you have to protect yourself against, and you need to take advice on this. And Bry's been great to me. He said, yeah, you could get away with that, but that's a hard no. So again, any people who are listening, whether you're artists, anything like that, just use a bit of common sense. And the one that really bugs me is photography.
Yeah.
It's not so much art. Art's bad enough, but photography is worse because the togs don't get the recognition.
No. People crop it, make it your profile picture, stick it on your band page.
Yeah. Take all the resolution out of the shot.
Take the watermark out the bottom corner. It's like,
So we had to move away from Tank Girl. We would have loved to do it. I probably, if we get bigger, which at the moment we've got no ambition.
You could approach.
We can approach Hewlett and we can approach Titan magazines and those sort of things and say, can we use Judge Dredd or can we use Tank Girl or whatever? Yeah. But we decided to go the anime route, nondescript. Yeah. Because it's the copyright's completely different.
Okay, so this is where the manga chick has kind of drifted in a little bit over the last kind of couple of iterations.
So we've got a number of artwork options. We explored the horror option. Yeah. We explored this sort of military option, again, more feminine than masculine, and looking what we could. And we had some amazing images.
Oh, mate, yeah.
And then we sort of spread them around, and we were all coming back to that sort of military kind of feel, but not man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why we ended up with the anime nondescript girl with a great big cannon.
The non-tank girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. The non-tank girl, yeah, like not a festival. Yeah. Surely there's somewhere in there somewhere. We just got to
find the strap line
properly without getting sued, basically.
Yeah. So it was something that interested me because obviously, it is, as you said, people have a habit of, I like that, and people just Google shit and take it without without buying, without asking. I was just wondering where if you knowing your weird and kind of varied background, if he happened to be the brother-in-law or something, the original.
Right. I mean, Bry. He's an amazing guy, and there are a plethora of fantastic artists out there.
Yeah.
Again, you could go into someone like the 0161 and say, I need some artwork, and you're going to get about 20 hits.
Yeah.
So do try and find either a good artist or find a good photographer who can manipulate digital art. But don't just steal. If you're doing a private party for 20 of your mates and you want a couple of T-shirts just as a bit of a reminder, you could probably get away with that. But if you're doing a 300, 500, 3,000, 30,000, don't think that you're just going to take Judge Dredd, I Am the Law from the Anthrax T-shirt and drop it straight into your T-shirt. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Don't think you can kind of, as you say, you're not going to steal the Aliens logo, or you're not going to do anything else on there that's going to get you taken to court by 20th Century Fox or someone else.
You will, because and this is the thing, because again with social media, you just think you're talking to 5 of your friends, but you're not. It's a global platform.
Talking to the world, yeah.
So somebody will know someone who'll know someone who'll say that's a record cover that you've stolen.
A cease and desist will land on it. And I guess it's even with names as well. You've got to be really careful regarding, copyrighted brands and all that sort of nonsense as well. That,
Festival of Hate, Mike. We missed a trick. We need to copyright that.
Right. At least by the domain name. As long as you've got a .com on it, it's yours.
Well, we've got our own website. We're all right.
Yeah, we did well with the website stuff.
Okay, so kind of 2022 is now, you said you're 99.99% there with lineup and everything else. Do you want to give it a pimp? Do you want to kind of say, where it is, who's on, and how you go about kind of picking up some of the last few tickets if you've snoozed it?
I don't even know how many tickets we sold or how many we've got left, but I know
it's going down. It's going down quickly.
They are shifting at a good pace. I mean, we because we've got the membership thing, you get flash ups every day about there is now 17 new people, 20 people, all these in the new group, which is just brilliant. But
you made that public though. I can't hide from work now. Private groups are the way forward. People watch what you're doing on Facebook. I need to, need to fly under the radar. I need a second account with a different name.
Yeah, we do. But I mean, it's brilliant. But I mean,
Tarquin Gyroscope tries to join tomorrow. That's me, all right.
Yeah, there's a few bits that we've lined up over the next couple of weeks, which are just going to be lovely little tickle-alongs to grab those last few bits of people that are holding on. And there's one guy at the moment he's fucking nagging me night, noon and day to release a fucking T-shirt for this year. And I'm going to do it. But there's all these little bits that we've got lined up, which just push along to get it done, which are just going to be brilliant. I've realised my daughter just walked into the room. So sorry about this. Good night. There you go.
If you think about it this way.
She's going to be working the barn next year.
Perfect.
It's that much of a family event. But, I mean, to put it into sort of perspective, I mean, Mike's got the best idea of what's the bands that are on and stuff to push it forward. But I just can't wait for the fucking thing. That's what's really great on me at the moment is it's not tomorrow. I wish it was. I just want to kind of get out there and get with it.
I guess being so close as well, it should have been next month. It should have been April.
Should have been. Oh. That really hurts a little bit. It hurts.
Because I remember when I picked my ticket up, it's like, that's probably going to be the first gig of next year. That's when the world sets itself back, that's going to be the first gig. And it's
the release gig.
Before we talk about 21, we had the good and the bad. We had potentially the first ticket in town, possibly the only ticket in town.
Yeah.
But we didn't have buyer confidence.
No.
Nobody was buying. No. So Mike and I, our backsides were hanging in the wind, knowing that at the last second, with just one message on BBC to say you can do this or that, we could sell out overnight because we were the first gig in town. But equally so, nothing was moving.
Max out your mortgage,
So we were. It was all or nothing for us. So by postponing it, it gave us that bit of breathing space where we could actually just refresh and just breathe out.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the bands we've not mentioned tonight is Ward 16. So we put Ward 16 right to the headliner spot. Those guys have had a really rough year. They brought out an amazing album. They couldn't promote it. They couldn't gig it. They had to cancel all of their launch shows. And when we just said to them, I had a good chat with the band and I said, look, let's just put you straight in at the top and let's see where you do. And they are super excited. We are super excited to have Ward 16. They've got a good following, done the Bloodsalt circuit. This is going to be a good jumping off point from them and fantastic communications with that team.
Yeah.
Then you've got your heavy hitters that we know that have been around for a while, like Acid Rain. Acid Rain have a dedicated following. They could fill the second stage in Bloodstock. We've been in those vibes. Those guys know what they're doing. Yeah. Super easy to work with. They know what they want. This is what we need, Mike. Just take care of that for us and we'll just come and do what we do. The only thing we've got to do is Mike's had to book about another 6 security members for front of stage. Not to keep the band, not to keep the fans surfing, is to keep the bands on the bloody stage.
to keep H on the stage, yeah.
Correct.
Make sure there's nothing he can climb on, nothing he can dive off.
Yeah, so it's all been H-proofed as best as we possibly can, and even then, you'll find something.
Yeah.
And then Censor have got a few irons in the fire at the moment. That's all I'm allowed to say. But, so for us to get them at this point was an amazing, because we booked them before our 21 lineup was announced. I had them already in the pipe for 22, so I already had them booked. And again, we've got bands who we're already talking to for 2023. So don't think this thing just comes together overnight. It doesn't. So we've got our acid rain, we've got our thrashers, we've got our horror, and we've got our bounce. So we've got something for everybody there.
Blend.
And then you've got your power rock of Blind River, you've got your Scruffy Bears, you've got your Darkness Divines. These are just fantastic rock and metal bands with some amazing voices. You've got some of the fringe bands who are a bit more obscure, like Alexa the Strange, who I'm really curious about myself. That'll be a band I'm watching a lot. And then you've got the stuff that I just thrive off, like Anti-Inferno and Ashen Crown and, Casket Feeder and all that wonderful, horrible stuff. But again, I've got to say, we have to say thank you to Godfriend, because they were with us right from the beginning, and they just came in and said, they just said, we want to come back. But Mike, who is the one band from last year who have just nagged us into oblivion? There's one band who have just nagged us to death.
You know who it is. It's
Hot
the
Rockets.
Hot Rockets. And do you know what? Come on, let's be honest. We picked them up last year as I can't remember if they were a last-minute thing or somebody had recommended them or whatever.
Because
but they came along.
Yeah.
To be fair, they were fucking brilliant. They really were. They
caught everybody off guard. Everybody was surprised.
Beautiful punk rock set. And then, as soon as they were finished, literally the last hi-hat was done, the last bass had resonated, and it was done. And 2 seconds later, they were on us. When are you fucking doing the next one? When are you doing the next one? And they did. They pestered us all the way through it. Fair play to them, because they've just released an album, which is fantastic. And I can't wait to see them live again. And we're going to see them in a few weeks' time. They're just brilliant. But yeah, they were like a dog with a bone, chasing us down here, there, and everywhere. But that's what you want. That's what you want, is people passionate in what they're doing. Yeah. You can't fault it.
There's talent within a reasonably local environment like Cyteria and Holy Alliance, Trendkill from Newcastle. Darkness Divine were one that we invited back because we said we weren't necessarily going to have rollover bands. We didn't want house bands. But their work ethic, the way they presented themselves, the way they were just no fuss. And they just came on a stage and just ripped us a new ass. They were just holy shit, where did that come from?
They did. I mean, I loved the question earlier, and I kind of forgot about this until a few minutes ago when you wrote about the rider thing. And Mike sort of rang me and said, "You need to look after this band now. You need to get them sorted." There was a particular band that we had on last time that kind of asked. They were playing on the Friday night, and they kind of asked, could they turn up on Wednesday to set up the fucking equipment, and could then everybody play around them for this small stage? And it was just, you just think, fucking hell, absolutely not. But, crack on if you can get away with it. But there was just so much around. It was such a good bounce last year, and that's all we can hope that's carried forward, really. Yeah. With the new stuff, the old stuff, and there was bands that wanted to play and couldn't play, and it's a right fucking jumble, but it's just going to be an absolute stormer.
So what's the date for next year? Do you want to kind of, those who haven't penciled in the diary yet, do you want to give them a date and a website to go and pick their tickets up?
You can find everything you need to know publicly at www.tanking.club.
Yep.
And in there you can find out who we are, what's on the menu, literally what's on the menu. You can find out about camping tickets and everything else. To give people an idea, we're a year to go. I think we are probably 2/3 sold.
Yep.
300 maximum capacity paying guests.
Yeah.
There are a very limited number of day tickets. If you want to do the black metal, heavy metal day of Saturday and you want to just do that, if that's your thing, or Friday, then you can do that, but it's only limited about. But do understand, our two main headliners haven't announced.
No. Keep it on the show day.
So, and this is the interesting thing for us. I've got people are saying to me, "Yeah, we'll buy a ticket in 6 months." Well, you won't, because it will go, because 300 capacity, and this is why Acid Rain and Censor and Ward 16 want to do this gig. Yeah. They're interested in doing a packed out, intimate show, which is mobbed, which has got all the chaos and a bit of 80s, 90s feel to it, than doing a venue which has got a capacity of 3,000, of which is only 10% full. Yeah. So in terms of our business strategy and our model, Mike and I would be like kids in a candy store. We'd invite 200 bands and would spend 2 million. But we know our model. We know what we can do. We know what the crowd capacity is from a health and safety and regulatory point of view. And we have a comfort level of how we're going to sell, when we're going to sell. And we know that we're already way over half, getting towards 2/3 of the way there. Yeah. So the packages are selling out. Camper vans are selling out. Kipping, all that sort of stuff's all selling out. We know we're going to get there, but I think what people actually probably don't realize is that they can wait a year and phone us up the night before and say, "Can I have 20 tickets for your mates?" And we say, "Well, sorry, you missed it."
Yeah,
it's sold out last summer.
I'm not sure. I think I've only got my ticket. I don't think I've got a camping ticket yet. I better I better have a look at that. Otherwise, I'll be kind of
could be dodgy. Could be dodgy.
To be honest, I lived in Dishford for 3 years. I'm used to kind of bashing up somewhere around the local area after a night.
Well, I suppose it depends how well this fucking show goes, whether we actually let you in or not.
Well, there is that. Yeah.
What's the standard bribe at the moment, Mike? Is it 2 cream eggs and a bottle of Valpolicella?
2 cream eggs and a Valpolicella. That's absolutely nailed it.
That's minimum bribe level.
I better go back and check my ticket, haven't I? Because I can't be, fuck knows what I ordered.
Yeah. You could be listening from outside of the fence.
Yeah, exactly. Like a pair of binos around the. Brilliant. Guys, I'm going to let you wrap up for the night. Thank you for joining us on a school night. Really
Thank you. We loved it.
I can't wait to join you in a field sometime kind of early next year. Pup, I'll wave at you at Damnation when you're running around with your arse on fire.
Yeah, I'll be there somewhere. Let's pick up a bit nearer the time. Let's do this again, and you can see how much we're sweating it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, I'll maybe on the Sunday night I'll interview on the scene when you're both kind of like, oh, what the fuck? or I'll get the girls for you.
Yeah, this is a shameless plug for Damnation. If you haven't picked up on it, get the Friday night, because the sets that are being announced for the Friday night pre-show are astonishingly good.
Yeah, I just saw that they've done Akakoka and who's the other one?
Speedhorn.
Speedhorn have come. Yeah,
Speedhorn back, right?
Yeah.
On it.
So because that's all you're going to get, because everything else is sold out.
Honestly, Damnation could be the first gig in town. I mean, I'm watching Badger Fest. I'm watching all of these things that are going on. I think the underground gigs have got a really good fighting chance. But in terms of the landmark gigs, I'd love that if they managed to pull off a UK Bloodstock, fair play to them. I think that was going to be hit and miss, but I really hope they can do it.
I kind of
who knows?
It's going into that point of the minute is you can see American bands dropping off the bill. Another couple have changed. I'd quite happily go for an all UK festival if it means a weekend in the field. Let's bring all the other bands that aren't on this year back onto the stage. Sonic. I don't care if there's no overseas bands. Let's go.
You've only got to really look at the sort of trends of what's going on. Is it all the big American bands and things? They've just yanked out the UK. They're headed home. They ain't going anywhere. We're not really going to be seeing them until next summer, maybe the year after.
Yeah, I think Sepultura have announced, haven't they, coming out kind of November time.
Sacred Right,
which
Crowbar.
Which I had tickets for which I think they've dropped the Southampton gig. But if you get anything like that before November, you're going to be bloody lucky, I think.
Yeah, I think Damnation's going to be a hot spot, definitely. Yeah. I hope Bloodstock happen. I hope Steel house down in Wales. I hope that
Yeah,
happens.
great gig.
So there's plenty of opportunity, but from a promoter point of view, you are really risking your ass on this one, because you've got the infrastructure, you've got the overheads, you've got people who need to be paid, you've got deposits, you've got all of that sort of stuff, and
Point
of no commit and force majeure contracts again.
Exactly, you've got all of that to think about. It's not all beer and skittles, but it is worth it. It's a giggle.
It's a giggle.
On that note, it was worth it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
All the best.
Cheers, guys.
And that's it, the first UK Thrashers Guide to. Thanks to the two Mikes for joining us. Thanks to you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with another one, I don't know, soonish. Cheers.